Hi, this is Seamless, and today I'm going to do the making of Empire, which was the latest track I just put out. It's a drum and bass track. I kind of like it. I'm enjoying it. And this is going to be kind of weird because normally I have a microphone on a mic stand that's pointing at my mouth when I talk, but I'm currently using all of my mic stands to record this band that I'm recording. So I'm actually I just have a mic that I'm just holding in my hand. And I'm going to hold it, and I'm going to try and do all this. And it's probably going to be just fine. But if things are weird, that's why. All right. So, if you haven't heard this track, you should go listen to it. I did a sort of a weird like preview video talking about how I mixed it, but this is an updated mix, and it's a bit different. Normally what I do is I usually like my how to basses and stuff are usually leading up to whatever track I'm working on because that's when I discover how to bass. So I'm all like, oh, do you want to talk about this bass? Go look at this video and all this stuff. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to talk straight about everything the whole time, front to back, as if no one had ever seen anything, because sometimes that's the case. But so first thing you might notice is that this is actually down a little bit, and that's because originally the song was in F sharp. Let's see. Well, I can actually just tell you what it was in. Yep, it was in F sharp. And I wanted it to be lower, so I just lowered the whole thing. And what the master pitch knob does is it lowers everything, every single thing's pitch that can be lowered by a pitch. Pop, 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 pop. God damn it. Lowered by pitch. See if I talk sideways. That's weird. I'm holding it like I'm some kind of hip-hop artist. So, what was I saying? So, I lowered it by pitch, which is any channel that has pitch activated. So, some of these, however, that also means like if you have samples like drums or whatever, it'll move the pitch of the drums, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But if you happen to have a mix that you like of stuff and suddenly it's all just thrown away because the pitches are different, it can be bad. So I had to just be aware of that when you do that kind of stuff. I would have been served better if I did everything, smart and actually just moved everything individually. It would be more of a intelligently holistic approach, and someone is talking to me on Facebook. I don't care. I'm gonna let him blink for a bit. Also, someone mentioned they want to know what this is. This is an IRC channel I hang out on. Yes, that's what I said. This is the EDM production subreddit IRC chat, and that's r/, it's Reddit. If you know Reddit, it's EDM production. It's one of the bigger things that's music related, so it's not hard to find, and that's the chat for it. It's on Freenode, and it's hashtag EDM production, not spelled anything weird. So let's just go through a track. So right off the bat, what's going on there? Except this thing here that I'm going to use to demonstrate something later, everything is a harmor. Every single sound you're hearing is allowed. It's alive. Oh, it's a live harmor. Words, I use them. I promise. It's a live harmor. So the first thing that's going on here is, did you notice anyway, is this guy. Which one did I... I guess I automated the filter directly. So what's going on here is that it's a big old unison with the hertz setting. Now the hertz setting is very unique to harmor itself, because like every other effect that's not the audio effects, the built-in audio effects, they're all effects that are mimicked additive synthesis that are normally subtractive synthesis type sounds. It recreates normal-ish unison settings, and then it can also do something extremely cool like the hertz setting. And the hertz basically splits the frequencies in a way that you can only be doing in harmor, because that's how harmor's built, is additively. And that creates a very interesting timbre if you mess with it. And one of the things that it does is it kind of makes an interesting like brassy kind of sound, which is sort of what I wanted. If if you set this up like this and you mess with the phase settings, you'll note an interesting change. I don't believe I messed with. No, I didn't. So this is basically just straight up this and a bit of distortion going on. I chose the hill setting because what hill and also flat hat does in the distortion is that it kind of adds a lower and like it adds like a sub to it. It makes it a higher sound like the octave below it based on the distortion type. So I do that sometimes when I'm moving something that's not bass because if something's already kind of low and you do that, it sort of messes with it in not good way, at least not to my own liking. And the reverb and delay in the main. This is a convolution reverb. If you don't know what this is, convolution reverb is the coolest thing ever. FL Studio comes with the Fruity Convolver, which can load impulse response files, which can be used for in a number of things, not least of which being reverb, which is generally what it's used for, but also stuff like guitar cabinets, which is kind of cool. What convolution reverb is that it's a reverb that it has a sound that it knows, and then someone goes somewhere like this one, I forget what this file is called. Civic Hall stage left rear. So they go there and they use that sound. It was usually a starter pistol or something like that. And in fact, I can show it to you. And because it knows what the starting sound was, it can extrapolate how the reverb is applied to that sound. And once it has that information, it can apply the reverb to any sound. And that's how you get like really, really interesting and like real sounding reverbs is through that kind of impulse response or IR style convolution reverb. So that's what I used on that to make that sound. And I'm also using this here, basically just kind of white noise. It's basically the same thing as what I just showed you with the other one, only all the unison settings are just straight all the way up, which is just so crazy. It's so crazy that the frequencies are just everywhere. And normally sound terrible, but it's a high pass sound, so it's basically acting as if it's white noise or pinkish noise, kind of noise. There's probably more efficient ways you can do that, but I for some reason decided to make everything a harmor for this track. That's the only reason why I did that. I mean, most subtractive VSTs just have a noise setting, and you can just use that. So there's no really much reason that I decided to do that other than because I could. And then this is just some kind of creepy sound that I decided to make that's really quiet because it's being automated somewhere, somehow, some way. And that was a bass drop. Again, didn't necessarily need to be done in harmor. I mean, it could have literally been anything, but I just decided to do that in harmor. Not really any reason for it. I use a slide note to make the drop sound. That's what it sounds like normally. And then just there you go. I had okay. This is when having two hands helps because I would normally hit control and zoom in, but I'm not going to. Now I'm actually pretty happy with this sound. Like that's just such a perfect chord stab sound. It's impressive. I'm impressed with myself that I made that because normally when I try to make stuff like that, it ends up being just a terrible mess. I have to go find someone's presets, and the presets usually aren't what I'm trying to use. And I try to work from that, and it becomes it's just bad. But this is exactly what I wanted. And part of the reason why this works as well as it does is because it's also a minor chord. Later on in the song, I do a little bit of change. You can see the character of the sound changes as a result. This one. Now, I'm automating the cutoff frequency in the playlist above these, but I also have the pluck engaged, which is what's causing the stab aspect of it. While I chose not to, it is sometimes a cool thing to do to automate the pluck response live, and you can get the kind of like stab to open chord style automation modulation. So creepy bell. Now, one of the things that the prism knob is useful for when you're not trying to make the sort of FM squelchy sound, which is what I usually use it for, is that the sort of frequency separation that it creates is often associated with with bell type sounds. It adds very metallic textures to things. I also have the phaser engaged, but the phaser is set to the harmonic mode, which is another one of those additive only type things, because the phaser is again only an additive mimicry of what a phaser usually does in an FX chain or an additive or a subtractive synthesizer. And so if I were to go to Hertz, for example, or octave, which is really Hertz and octave are really only just a distribution change of weighting, I mean like weight, like heavy weight, like weighting. I can illustrate this by showing you the difference between octave and Hertz in the visualizer here. The Hertz setting is basically showing you 1 to 512 just straight up right there. Then the octave setting, you can't really see it because it's I can show you through the other one, this guy, because it's more full spectrum. Now this is weighting it as it would be seen in like an EQ spectrum. Like, see, this is 20 and then 50, and this space is 30 hertz, but then over here that same space is like 3,000 hertz or more, 5,000 hertz, like 8,000 hertz, a large amount. It's exponential, but however, if I just go to hertz, that's not exponential. That's straight up even weighting is what that is. So that's basically what that means with the phaser is come back. Basically what that means with the phaser, if I were to turn all the way up, see, you can see where the phaser is creating the what would be a phase cancellation. Why that a normal phaser creates the sound by slightly phasing, changing the phase of the input audio, and that creates phase cancellation like this, and that's what the effect is for. But this weights it by octave, which is a straight curve. But if I did it by hertz, it would curve, but you would see more. Actually, I can adjust the width. See, it curves and it eventually flattens out. Harmonic phasing, however, changes how the individual harmonics interplay with each other. And I forget what the original settings were, but it's not hugely important, just that it's doing something. But the interaction that it has with the newly, I guess, metallicized harmonics being moved around by the prism knob, it creates a kind of unique ethereal nature to it. And then like a volume thing envelope. I don't know what I'm doing, I promise. Just a volume envelope to make it so that, like, if I were to and then a release curve as well, just to make it extra creepy. And that's more or less how that's just doing that. And now this chord here is another one of those things I'm just happy that I can make. It's a very especially for like drum and bass style stuff, like those chord stabs and these just chords are a very staple type of things to do. And now this chord is not only the sound, it's also the chord itself. And what this chord is the tonic, the minor 3, and the major 7. And I mean, you can still get this kind of feeling by moving it up and making the tonic actually at the root, or and that's just because it's going to sound like that creepy anyway, just because of this minor second here. But I chose to use the major 7 because the song is predominantly minor, and major 7s just sound weird in minor, and I wanted to make it sound weird. So there's that. Unless you're, there's harmonic minor and whatever, but part of the reason why harmonic minor is a different thing is because of the addition of the major 7. And then there's melodic minor, which is interesting. Just like a good time. It's when you change how you go down and when you go up. Yeah. So here we're coming up to the first usage of one of the bass. All right, so this is one of the first basses. I believe I have a filter engaged. I'm going to turn it off just so that it will shut up when I'm working on it. Yeah. So now you saw that I disabled the filter control, but it's still modulating. And you'll notice when I play it, that nothing is being modulated, nothing is moving. In fact, nothing in any of the effects are moving anywhere. And that's because the modulation you're hearing is the product of the unison settings. Nothing moving here. Yeah, it's a product of the unison settings. Now, with a normal Reese setup, I can actually just use the 3x OSC to demonstrate this. Normal Reese setup, your plan is to have 2 or more saws, usually 2 saw waves, and then detuning them. This is me forgetting how to use 3x OSC. All right, there we go. All right. You hear that kind of warble that's going on? That is the result of the pitch difference. And like the phaser earlier, the pitch difference causes phase cancellation, which creates that kind of modulation in the sound. That's being applied in a very interesting way with the Harmor channel, because not only do you have, I'm using the unison to create the 2 voices, which are being detuned by the pitch difference, pitch thickness that you're hearing here, but then I'm also changing the unison pitch, which I've talked about, in like almost all of my past videos, and not almost all, like 3 of the past, like the last 3 how to bass videos have been about Harmor's unison pitch. And then also how to bass 23 was about how to get this effect with any plugin, not just Harmor, and why Harmor is particularly good at it. I refer to Harmor as solving for N for this concept, because normally what you would do is you would frequency split your bass sound and then apply a different pitch or chorus values to each of the spectrums, and then distort that. And then when it's crushed up against itself like that, the phase difference and difference part of the spectrums create really unique movement. And that's what's going on here. So the movement here is actually totally at the mercy of what the pitch settings are. And I don't change them ever in this track. So then the rhythm is more or less always the same. I did, however, tweak it to be kind of in time with the track. So like what if you wanted a different rhythm? Would you just make a whole new track? Well, normally the way that you would deal with this is, because this is usually a result of resampling, you would just chop it up to the rhythm that you wanted and then make that your rhythm. So that's traditionally how that's handled. Yeah. Anyway, like I said, I had a filter engaged here, which is what this green bar is. So this bass. So like I said, the modulation is the result of the pitch difference. And you also may have noticed how well, this one doesn't really do it so much, but in the other one, you may have noticed how the rhythm basically restarts every time you hit the note. So the more crazier modulation results, or the result of the note being held longer. And this bass is a pretty good example of that because it sounds pretty normal until this note gets held out for kind of a while, and then you can sort of hear where it goes. Like that kind of sounded like a normal like detuned saw Reese for a second, like a very dry, unsampled, like unmessed with one, and then it just went weird, and that's because the unison pitch differences in this one is actually way more slight than the one that I had in the main bass, and that's because I kept the fundamental at the pitch at the main pitch difference. The primary warble and phasing effect that you hear is because the fundamental tone is being phase canceled by itself, and that is since it's the fundamental tone, it's very prominent, and when it's phasing against itself and it's going in and out of audibility, it's noticeable, and that creates a more pronounced warb. Now, as you may have noticed, the modulation is faster when the pitch is higher. If you do like I did here, which was I started out higher, but then I went lower, because it was higher for a bit, that means it actually went farther along in the modulation than it would have if I stayed lower. So because it went high and then I went low, it went to the lower notes modulation went farther along than as if I had started out at that low tone. And so it's kind of a neat way of getting around the rhythm trick. I could have just raised the pitch for that note, but while that will give you more control, it still isn't as much control as like I would like. So I have just kept it the way it is. But it makes for good fills to know that if you leave the note going on for long enough, it will eventually do that. And I took turn filter off. Now, if you wonder what I'm doing with these low filters, most of the time it's just a basic cutoff, like a low pass filter. Not very complicated. Not even really a necessary use of the low filter. I just always use the low filter because the low filter is capable of kind of a lot of stuff, and it's not like I don't use it enough, and I really should because it can do crazier things. And oftentimes, though, especially with this type of bass, I don't really want more than just a low pass filter because a lot of what's already happening has already happened. So this drum loop here, this was given to me by someone on the EDM production. Someone's talking to me. Yeah, this guy actually got a track released on a podcast released on Metalheads, which is extremely cool. I gotta look at that later. But that guy, actually the same dude, Rain H. You can be surprised when he sees this in the video. Decided I told him I was making this track. He's like, "Here, have a loop," and he gave me the loop. It's really quiet right now because it's automated to be so. Now, I really only wanted that. This was actually his suggestion as well, that I low pass it or high pass it and just use it for basically the rides and the hat play. What's going on there? So that's exactly what I did. You can see here in the EQ. That's what I did because I already have a lot going on with the percussion, and like that particular sound is very well known in old school drum and bass, which he is like a scholar of drum and bass. And if you find this guy's track, we'll look at it again. This guy, like if you listen to his track, you can definitely tell that he knows a lot about drum and bass as a genre and its history. Whereas I don't, because I'm kind of young in comparison to him, and also like I haven't really been paying attention. But yeah, so that's what that thing is doing. Now this loop versus this loop is basically that I just used somewhat the same like samples, but I made some quieter in the sequencer, like that. I still use the sequencer for drum placement, even though like back in the day, I used to be, I was like, when the FPC first came out in FL Studio, that meant that I could write whatever I wanted in the piano roll. That's amazing. And yeah, it is more efficient, but I knew that I wasn't going to be doing a whole lot of like really varied drum work, which might be kind of a lazy thing to say, but if you look at a lot of the a lot of the big names in drum and bass, they do have more drum work than I do, but I'm not very good at drum work, and I didn't want to force it because I have. I mean, you haven't heard it because I recognize when I do, but it sounds really bad when I force stuff to happen. So I just don't if I can't. And usually, even if it is less exciting, it's still more solid. I definitely prefer solid over failed exciting. That's my point on that. So this is just. I actually think this is the this patch, the searing tone patch, just cloned and made a little bit. Yeah, it's the exact same thing. And then I just use it to make a riser out of it. I rise by using the slide notes. But this is actually pretty interesting. So you see here that the notes are kind of weirdly discolored, and maybe we don't know why. But what's going on here is, yeah, there are 3 notes here. This is the creepy chord, right? And I made them 3 different note colors. And then with these note colors, I used 3 different slide notes. And the reason I did that is because if I just did 3 notes and 3 slide notes, they wouldn't know which notes to go where. But because I did the individual colors, which you can select up here, it recognizes them as different voices. And if you do the same colors, same slide notes, it will actually move those voices independently and do cool things. I've used that before in other. Oh, and if you're wondering what that fuzz is, I have Sign Crush distortion enabled, and it's at the very lowest setting, which creates a kind of a white noisy sound, which I liked. I like it. I blew in the mic. Not something I wanted to do. So in the main bass that I have going on here, you saw that some of the automation that I have was the bass 1 saw a square position, and the chorus mix, and also the secondary chorus mix. The secondary chorus mix being the one that's in the effects channel. Automating that is a lot of fun, but watch what happens when I automate the saw to square. See, something interesting happens when you use a square at the same frequency as something that used to be a triangle. I'm going to illustrate this by opening up Harmor. Now, this is universally true for comparing a saw and a square, but oh man, this is when having 2 hands would be really helpful. I guess I'll just make a new pattern. Go to first empty. There you go. Pattern 4. Huh. Go away, time marker. Yeah. All right. Needs to be something with a big enough period. This isn't going to be illustrated at all because I'm running it through Maximus. So I'm actually going to disable the master Maximus for a second. Okay. And now no one can hear me. All right. Let's just turn down the master out. So, all right. Watch up here. Actually, I guess I could do this in Wave Candy. Don't want to do it that one, though, because I'm using it. I wonder if I'm going to have to edit this out. See, Facebook is still twinking, but yeah, all right. So, where's the gain? Right there. All right, that's better. So you see, yeah, my voice, look at that. So you saw the period of the saw wave, right? Now watch what happens when I play the note and I move the saw to the square. Now, the period of the waveform, that is, if you look at my mouse, it shows the 0 point to the other 0 point is the same length in the saw and the square, but because the square is now a square, there's seemingly two events taking place that are noticeable to the ear as basically the period. So that gives it the appearance that if you're playing a note as a saw wave and then you play the same note as a square wave, it seems as if the square wave is an octave higher. And okay, so that's all well and good. Just play it lower, you say. Except you may have noticed that I didn't quite sound like the right pitch. It's not because I have the master pitch moved. It's because, I'm not actually 100% sure why that is, but that's kind of more or less the truth. And so the problem with this though is that I like a lot of how the square waves sound when we're using bass shenanigans. See, now my voice is back up because I turned Max's back on. I'm going to get rid of this guy, so I don't care about it. God, it takes forever. This is what happens when you got a lot of crap in a project. Okay, so anyway, I like some of the things that happens when you use the saw waves, but I'm also using it as a bass, and it just sounds like it's not as low anymore. So that's a problem. So I use it to accent certain things that sound cool in a certain way, and I also usually keep it in the mid area so that it has the square attitude, but it has the saw depth. It's very nice, if I do say so myself. So I have a couple ways going on. I have the two that I described at the beginning there, and then I bring in this weird high screechy sound. This is just a nonsense sound. I just turn it up really high, put the unison settings up ridiculous, turn on a whole bunch of effects, and then I also moved the pitch around, the fine pitch, so that it just sounds like nothing because the automation's off. But you see, this sound was never meant to be played alone. This sound is heavily sidechained. It's sidechained through the sidechain bus, but I believe its own channel was also sidechained. Yes, it is definitely also sidechained. So it's only meant to be kind of an accent, a high frequency accent. Indeed. So let's talk about this other bass. So what's going on here is that this is basically the same setup as the other two basses. It has the unison setting, and then the same, or well, not the same, but it's messed with in the harmonic unison pitch thickness change window linear line editor thing, which again I talk about in detail in How to Bass 23, 22, and probably 21. I haven't looked recently, but I'm just gonna go ahead and guess that I did. Maybe even 20, or even 19 for that matter. So the primary audible difference in this one is actually from the EQ, and this is actually still true for the other basses as well. Yeah, see, when you distort something as heavily as I am this, and you put an EQ before it, making minor EQ adjustments really drastically changes the character of the sound. And one of the things that I did is in the third bass, I put this big bump here in the low mids area, like the information bar is saying 100 to 3 to 4-ish, 100 to 500, and this is where the roundness comes from, and that you may notice this particular bass sounds kind of round. That's right, sniffing in the mic. I might have a cold. It might be a thing that I have. Anyway, so that's a big character changer. And if you're looking to make something sound a particular way with using distortion, oftentimes a lot of the problems you have with it can be solved by altering the EQ before the distortion. In fact, a lot of things that we look for in distortion when we're distorting resounds, like the phase difference in the pitch warble, can oftentimes be even completely removed or really accentuated if we increase the EQ of the fundamental area. So that's a lot of fun to play with. All right, what else? It's not really okay. Let's talk about the drums and how they're mixed. So you're probably surprised how that sounds just now. Because if you listen to the track, like even if I were to disable the loop right now, the extra loop. You might think the drums just sound stupid by themselves, and that's oftentimes the case. Like if like a lot of the character that the drums have, they have because of their interaction with the rest of the track, and how the frequencies are layered onto each other. It kind of accentuates one and the other, and then also, of course, having the extra ride hat loop in there definitely adds a bit of shimmer and shine to it. My screen is frozen right now. Now it's not frozen. But what's going on here? So, like, what are the samples that I'm using? I'm using the samples from the Groove Machine library. What is Groove Machine? Groove Machine is a plugin that is developed by ImageLine, the developers of FL Studio. It's for standalone use. It's for like live performing of like grooves and loops and stuff that you make in the plugin itself. And to facilitate this, it comes with a whole bunch of drum samples. And you can, if you download the demo for Groove Machine, you can just take them from the library, the install directory. Groove Machine itself is kind of nice. I like it. I have no use for it, but I like it. But the drum samples that are in there are all really good. Like this is the folder I have it here. And if you want to know how to put in extra folders in your FL thing, you go to options. File settings, and you can say which browse extra search folders, and you can tell them which one to put on there. And I have the program files, ImageLine, Groove Machine, samples, drum samples, and it's just I've basically only been using these samples since about Bass Antics time. Anyway, I'm using a bunch of that here. I have this main kick, which is the electric. I'm talking to myself because I disabled my channel because I'm smart. Anyway, the first one isn't the more electro-y sounding one. And then I have this one, which is more like acoustic-y sounding. And the blend works well. I favor the electro-y sounding one just because I like that way it sounds. And they're all EQ'd to taste. Like if I identify particular frequencies I like or want to accentuate, then I did. I have 3 different snare samples. Snare samples is what I said. Snare samples is what I meant. And again, they are just picked to taste like same thing with the hats and the tams. I really underestimate the value of tambourines in a song and a loop. They're often present in lots of drum loops, but I never use them, and I don't know why. I decided I felt like it, so I did. That's how that works. Now, in this mixing window, you can see they got all the basses and the drum buses. I have all the snares going into the snares and all the hats and the kicks, and then it goes in the main mix, and then it goes out. But then there's also the sidechain bus. And what this is, basically everything is eventually going back to the sidechain bus, and then it's being sidechained by the kick and the snare. And you can demonstrate this by looking at this while the song's playing. This is another one of those things that you set the taste by how much you want things to be ducked by the kick and the snare. This was just question mark. This was just the thing that I set, and I felt like leaving it here after extensively messing with it. And then after that, I also compressed the bus again. This was kind of an experiment. Like you might say, and you'd be right, that it kind of negates the ducking that I just set up with the sidechaining there. If I wanted to, I could also put it before the sidechain. But I feel like that's a little bit too hard. Of course, I could also change them to be not as hard and alter the release. There's really a lot of options there. There's not just any one thing that I could have done, but everything that could be done from this standpoint is more or less the result of someone's opinion. And mine happened to be that what I did currently is what I wanted to do then, even though my ideas change as time goes on. Like I look at some of the things I've done in other songs, and I'm just like, God, why did I do that? Why? Just tell me why. Anyway, that's what's up with that. The drum bus itself is also compressed. A general rule of thumb that I adhere to is that you don't saturate soft sat the sub, but you let the mids and the high clip, or soft saturate basically. And you also let the master clip, and that gives it a very nice crunch. It also really pushes how sharp things are, but it also keeps the sub and the bass nice and round, and it doesn't distort that, because that kind of sounds like ass when it distorts. I also have I'll put this back on because I disabled it, but it's basically the same thing that I applied to the master. Except that somebody on one of my on my videos said that they would like more sub in my tracks, and I listened to that guy because I kind of agreed. And I took basically what I did was I turned down the mids and the high, but kept the compression on the bass as high as it was, and then I cranked the master. That's more or less what that's up. What's up with that? What is up is that. What else to talk about? So you might be interested in what's going on with these. These are all wave candies with their various settings. One is on. This one is the vector scope. What is a vector scope? Because you see these, you're like, oh, that's the spectrum analysis. That's fine. Then you see this. What is a vector scope? A vector scope, and that's why I have this open, is a point of a vector scope is to show you the stereo image of a song visually. And so like it's kind of hard to tell when a track like this has everything, basically every single thing is stereo except like a few things. So like you see how my voice is completely dead center. Now watch what happens when I pan my voice. Notice also that I have it before the Maximus. I'm going to show you why I did that in a second. But panning my voice. See, now it goes all the way over there, and then it goes all the way over here, and now it's in the center. Now watch when I put the wave candy after the Maximus. I pan it over here. Now, all of a sudden, it doesn't look like it's dead to one way or another. In fact, it looks like it's spread out a certain way. And that's because in the Master Maximus, I have stereo separation engaged on the mids and the highs, and solidly not separated on the lows, which is another good thing to do. And I do that basically in every Maximus I have set up anywhere at any time, which might be a bit redundant for stuff like centering the lows, but I do it anyway because I haven't seen any kind of bad result from doing so. So there's that. So like when you see a sound happen, you can see visually if it's favoring one side or another, or if it's appropriately spread, which is extremely valuable for such occasions, such as when I end up having hearing loss in one of my ears, or it's clogged with earwax, which happens frequently. And that means that I hear things more loudly on one side than the other. And if I'm not aware of that and I compensate for it, suddenly everything's leaning to one side in the mix, and it sounds just fine to me. So I look at the vector scope and I see, oh, it's all leaning to one side. Crap. And I go and deal with that. That's kind of why that's there. But it also looks cool. Isn't that neat? This vector scope or spectrum is obviously the kick and the snare and the drums. And this is just the sidechain bus, so it's like all of everything else. So it's the drums, everything else, and then the master is the vector scope. Wave Candy is an effect that you can access in the effects, and then it has this whole window, and that's how you mess with it all. And it's kind of neat. Good times. I kind of like it. It's a lot of fun. I believe I've answered all my questions. If you haven't picked this up, and you don't know that you can buy the project for this file so that you can mess with it yourself, all very in-depth and coolly. It's available on Black Octopus Sound. I'll put the link in the description. If you're not interested in buying it, but you still want to know what's going on, that's why I watched this video. I hope that I've answered your questions. And if you have any more questions, please let me know. I will attempt to answer them. And if you hate me and everything that I do, I accept it. I am sorry. I'm not really sorry. I don't really care. Yeah. Happy Monday. It's still Monday where I live.